Hello everyone, sorry for the slight delay there and welcome to today's webinar, Programmatic Rise of the Machines. My name's Sarah and I'm the Marketing Manager here at Sagittarius and will be hosting today's webinar. Today's presenter is Josh Whiten, Digital Marketing Director here at Sagittarius. The webinar will last around 1 hour and will consist of 45 minutes of a webinar and 15 minutes of questions at the end. We'll be taking questions at the end of the 45 minutes, but please type your questions into the questions box within the webinar portal and we will answer all of these at the end. We'll also share the slides from today's webinar with all of the delegates this afternoon, if not tomorrow, via email. Now, Josh, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Sarah, and welcome along, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to our latest webinar. So, as we explained, this is around programmatic advertising, which I've sort of dubbed Rise of the Machines. So a little bit about myself and about Sagittarius, if you don't know us already. I'm the Digital Marketing Director here, run the digital marketing team within Sagittarius, which is a full-service digital agency. We're very pleased to be a multi-award-winning agency, but on the digital marketing side, what we really specialise in is multi-channel digital campaigns and ongoing activity, integrating channels together. And that's why we're so interested in programmatic and the opportunities it gives to help our clients with their integrated digital marketing efforts. So very briefly, just about the agency, if you don't already know us, because I know looking at the delegates, it's a good mix of clients and people who don't know us already and everything. So for those of you who don't, as I said, we're full service. There's two main sides to the business. And then this just shows those main services that each side of the business offer. But enough about us. Let's talk about you, because I always like to give some thought about the audience when we run our webinars and who you might be and what your challenges might be. And I was thinking that you're probably already using paid search and some display advertising, and this might be done through Google Display Network. You could well be investing some of your marketing budget in offline media campaigns at the moment, but maybe wondering about what sort of results you're getting from that. You could be doing all of this either in-house or through an agency, or you kind of have a bit of a siloed approach with PPC managed by one sort of resource and SEO in-house or whatever. You could well be a fairly hands-on digital marketing manager, marketing or brand manager, or actually you could be sort of C-suite level or a business owner. But I think obviously I'm hoping you've all sort of joined us today because you're all curious about or have just started out with programmatic advertising and want to find out some more about it. So in terms of the aims for the webinar, we're going to talk about what programmatic is, where it's came from, because I think it's quite helpful to understand just where it's exploded so quickly. It's helpful, I think, to understand how that's happened and why. We'll talk a little bit about what it isn't actually, because the name does get applied to a lot of different disciplines. We're going to talk about why you should be bothered about programmatic, and we'll explore a few ideas of where programmatic could go next. So especially if you're already using it, that could be interesting to give you some more ideas of how to use it more in future. So let's start with one of those points there. Why care about programmatic? I mean, you're probably hearing the name everywhere in sort of marketing press, events you go to, so many now. Marketing events, there's people talking about programmatic. You know, why bother? Well, it kind of combines all of these things you can see here. It's artificial intelligence and big data and machine learning, but it's also very disruptive because it's so new. It's all around performance and conversions. And the point at the bottom there is very relevant with the work we do on web platforms alongside Sitecore, in that it really is all around this single customer view. So in other words, it really is topical and it combines a lot of very new sort of emerging ideas and concepts within digital, which is why it's so exciting and why it's getting so much attention. So here's some basics, just really breaking it down into some simple points as to what programmatic is and what it does and how it does it. So really, it's just a new technology taking over what was a manual process in many respects. And this is the same with lots of new disruptive web technologies. When they emerge, they're often just making something that was a bit clunky previously more efficient and more effective. Another key point is with your advertising, it shifts the whole balance really, in that your advertising is following the user, but wherever they go, so across device and across channel. And then the next step is almost predicting what their next move will be. And it's doing this through lots of shared anonymized data from lots of different sources. That's the whole big data aspect. And then another factor of programmatic is that it's buying the ads to show to these people in this incredibly clever way at very low cost, using another piece of sort of emerging technology around buying ad space and ad inventory and auctions. And then lastly, again, yet another really clever bit is programmatic. Once you set it off and up and running, it will learn as it performs. It will improve its performance through the machine learning aspect. And that's why, hence, I sort of stole that for the title of today's talk, really. It's almost like Rise of the Machines. You're entrusting your online advertising to computers to improve and refine it for you as it proceeds. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's maybe go back a little bit in time and talk about how this used to be done. Because I said it's been disruptive, it's coming in a new way. So when I'm talking about the old way of advertising, I'm not necessarily talking about the 1950s Mad Men style Madison Avenue. Probably more in the last sort of 5-10 years or so, how online display advertising has been managed. And this was in a very top-down way. So you, the client, would typically tell your ad or marketing agency who you wanted to target. You would know the demographics of your key audiences, your key audience segments. You'd have done research. You know, if you're a good marketing manager, this is the stuff, your bread and butter, that you would know instinctively who your audiences are, and you'd have the data to back this up. So you would give those profiles to your agency, and then they would basically go away and find online media, online websites, who had a high number of the same types of people, so that would match your audience. And that's based on the media packs that all those different websites would be putting out, and their own data, their analysis of their audiences and the demographics and the age profiles and gender split and everything else. So when they found a match, then your agency on your behalf would literally be phoning or emailing those sales desks within those different media and basically haggling for a deal, normally a one-off or ongoing insertion. And that would be buying a block of page impressions on that website or inventory. And it could be a certain amount of impressions a month or over a fixed period for a campaign. And on the commercials, it would be on a CPM basis. You'd be buying those impressions on a cost per thousand impressions. So what happened then after the campaign? You know, the media would probably share some stats back with the agency, and the agency would have had some of their own tracking in place as well. But really, a lot of that tracking was around, did the brand get the impressions that they paid for? And some of it was kind of around, did it hit the right audience? And then that would be analysed and reviewed together, and then it would be repeated. And I remember working with some travel clients, and it would almost be sort of the same time every year, let's book the online display campaign. And, you know, it kind of wouldn't change much year on year. And also, this was all very much a focus on brand awareness and visibility. And there's nothing wrong with that when we're doing a multi-channel integrated campaign for a client. We're actually the ones telling clients, you need to invest in display and raise awareness as part of the whole process, as part of an integrated campaign. But this way of buying online sort of display inventory was very much purely focused on awareness. You get such low click-through rates, it really wasn't for buying traffic. You were buying visibility. So it was very much top of funnel, and it was very much top down. But as a side effect of this arrangement, a lot of the media, the websites trying to sell their inventory, probably wouldn't sell all their page impressions all the time, every week or every month, and they would have an unsold inventory of page impressions. And obviously, when you've got a page design with a banner ad slot in there, you've got to show something in that MPU slot, that sort of 300 by 250 pixels block in the middle of the page of content. And so most media sites, websites would run their own in-house ads, or to be honest, they'd over-deliver on a client's campaign and maybe hope to get them back as a client in future, or if they've maybe had issues with that client in the past. So they really weren't making much money from that unsold inventory. So that's how then ad exchanges started to emerge a couple of years ago. And these were discrete marketplaces where really the media owners would sell off their unsold inventory at much lower prices than their rate card, on the basis that, hey, look, say our rate card was £10 a thousand impressions, and but we've still got 20% unsold inventory. Look, we're not going to sell it. We're better off putting it out on a marketplace and getting £2 or £3 per thousand. But we don't want the whole world to know about it, because then all the brands are going to be coming back saying, hey, you're selling the same inventory for a much lower price. So a lot of these were quite private ad exchanges. But then technology stepped in and made all of this real time. So on an ongoing basis, media could be feeding their unsold inventory into the ad exchange, saying, right now, here and now, we've got this unsold stock. And then the buyers started using the technology to sort of buy it on the fly, here and now basis, basically using RTB, real-time bidding technology, which you may have sort of come across. And that was really a way to scoop up some of this unsold inventory at a much cheaper price, but obviously with a bit less control. So that infrastructure was in place, and it had been in place for a little while. But then there was a bit of a double big bang that really accelerated the growth of programmatic on top of real-time bidding and ad exchanges. And there were two key areas that emerged, both driven by technology. The first was really this growth in big data and shared data, and also more of a focus on performance amongst you guys, amongst brands, amongst clients. So we'll just explore those 2 points in a bit more detail. Firstly, the big data part. So basically, websites running advertising are obviously collecting cookie data on the individuals visiting those sites, and that data started to be shared around sites a lot more. And that's data across different sites, but also users across different devices. It started in the early days that maybe some websites were saying, look, we've got some intent data because we've got a list of cookies of users who we know have been on this site searching for a holiday. So a travel insurance brand might want to buy up that data because they know they're going to be in the market for their product or service. But now that big data, that shared data, has really developed to give a much more granular view, that single customer view we were talking about earlier. And let me just illustrate this with an example. So imagine you're John and you've gone to website A and you have bought something on website A, and so they've got your email address and you bought that on your desktop computer. So you've got one cookie on that device and you can be recognized on that device as John. But if website A then shares that data with website B, and website B says, oh, hey, John came to our site once, actually, and he inquired about this service. And so we also got his email address, but he inquired on his mobile. And we don't have his desktop, but you guys have. But we've got his mobile device and you guys have. So this data starting to be shared between websites has started to really build out a much more sophisticated view of each individual user. So that if these sites are sharing this data, they can then start to track you, to follow you around and advertise to you across all your devices, even though you've never visited that site with that device. The other key aspect of that data as well is these websites are sharing data on you, saying, hey, not only do we now know John's desktop and John's mobile and John's email address, but actually now matching your profile and your behavior across 5 or 6 different websites, we know that John is much more likely to actually buy something on a Sunday evening on his mobile between the hours of 7 and 9. So that data is really valuable to then choose when and where to show you adverts or show adverts to John in future if someone new wants to sell something to him. So the other big feature of this sort of big bang that gave birth to programmatic is around performance. And this is again kind of linked to technology, but also more around attitudes amongst brands. And it's really because brands care so much more about conversion than awareness now. And we see this so much on all of the digital marketing channels we manage on behalf of clients. And part of it's both a blessing and a curse, but the ability to measure everything in digital is amazing because we can review the data and make better decisions, but it means everything is accountable. And everything is almost kind of looks like what was the conversion rate of this ad or this activity. But it's an example of this wider sort of feature now that brands really are more focused on conversions than they used to be. It's also given rise to things like conversion rate optimization as a discipline, which is another area we get much more involved in now than we used to. And that links also with this growth in machine learning technology to optimize. So this is the other big feature about programmatic. It's not just you set it up, you'll get the same results for this campaign that might run for 6 or 8 weeks. The results will improve as the campaign runs. So let's just break it down. And if you were going to run a programmatic campaign, what does that actually mean? What are the steps in that process? Or if you're already running one, some of these should be familiar, or you may not be doing all of these, but let's break it down as to what does it look like when you run a programmatic campaign. Well, the first step is you place a tracking pixel from your programmatic advertising partner. And so you would work normally through us, we'd obtain the pixel, we put it on your website, and that's a tracking pixel. And it wouldn't go on every page, but it would go on key landing pages in the home page. And then it might sit also on the add to basket page if it's an e-commerce site, and then also on the checkout page, the order confirmation page. And that pixel will quietly sit there for a little while before the campaign runs, building up a picture on data on who actually visits the site, but then who goes on to convert, or who starts the conversion process but drops out and doesn't convert. So then what that allows you to do is you can do some simple retargeting to people who did drop out. And I know you can do retargeting on Facebook ads and on Google AdWords display network and RLSA search campaigns. And we do loads of retargeting with every sort of campaign and every client we work with. But the programmatic retargeting is obviously different because it's going to be following the user across all of their devices, not just the one that you happen to know about that they visited your site with. But then you can expand on your retargeting to do prospecting and acquisition to find new customers. And again, this is a bit like the lookalike function in Facebook ads. You're cloning the audience of people who converted to find more like them. But again, you'll find them in more places with programmatic because of the bigger picture around each user. So that bigger picture means that the ads are shown when and where people are most likely to convert by device or time of day or day of the week. And all of this is done buying the ad inventory at a much lower than normal price because it's all done on the fly using sort of real-time bidding through ad exchanges most of the time. There are sometimes sort of fixed buys which are made through specific media if that is really where your audience is. And then, as we've said, the machines take over then. And once the programmatic campaign is running, it will be optimized on an ongoing basis, and not just by machines, but by us and with our native advertising partners as well. We'll be looking at what we can learn and what we can fine tune. And the metrics you measure success with, how do you measure success and see if you're getting good results? It could be a cost per acquisition target, CPA, or it could be conversion rate. There's several different metrics you could use to really track progress. So that's a really simple breakdown of really how a programmatic campaign works. So it's not really that complex, but as you can see, it combines several different innovations and types of technology. So just to illustrate how one of the steps there was kind of the real-time bidding, and we've talked about these ad exchanges. So I just thought it would be helpful to just show you a really simple diagram of really how the buying process works. To be honest, you don't really need to worry about this. If you're running programmatic, you don't need to know this or understand it because you work with a partner and it all happens behind the scenes. But if you want to look inside the black box, this is what happens. So you as a brand or advertiser would come to your marketing and digital agency like ourselves or a programmatic partner and book a campaign. And then the actual ad inventory is bought using something called the DSP, and there's several different ones out there that you would plug into. And this is a bit of a technology, really, because all the DSP does is give you a gateway into the ad exchange marketplace. So you have to use one in order to buy up inventory on the ad exchange. That's on the buying side. On the selling side, there's an SSP on the other side. So I should have said DSP is demand side platform and the SSP is seller side platform. So the SSP is feeding the ad inventory into the marketplace, and the media, the publisher, the website owner is feeding the inventory via the SSP. And you do still get other buys taking place. So you still will get brands going to those media, and also wanting to do sort of like a fixed contracted buy, and agencies doing it on behalf of brands. But the way programmatic has taken off, it's just, I'd say, a greater and greater percentage of ad inventory is being sold more and more now through programmatic. What this ends up looking like, it has really grown. This is an example of a programmatic landscape of all the different aspects and the different technologies, and there's a whole ton of logos on here. I'm not going to run through all of these, but some of the different tools that these services will achieve around data and measurement, third-party verification, some of display networks. You can see it's really evolved into a very sophisticated ecosystem for programmatic. And I think the main point I'm trying to make here is this is why it is quite helpful to work with someone who's already doing this to help guide you through and make the best choices. So there are some impacts and issues to consider. The first one is obviously that brands have to learn to trust the machines. You're handing control over to computers to really run your display advertising and choose when and where to show ads. You're moving away from you deciding, I think Mumsnet is a great website to reach our audience of mums aged 30 to 35, and you're letting machines decide instead in order to get better results. There is a minimum investment in time and data required, because to do programmatic well, you do need a good solid chunk of data just to work with, to make meaningful data-led decisions and for the systems to sort of number crunch and work with. And if you don't have huge amounts of sessions to your site, that can take a bit of time to build up. There are some brand safety concerns, as there are in lots of forms of online advertising, especially display on YouTube, and you've probably read about some of these things, in terms of where is my advert going to appear? What site will it appear on? What content will it appear on alongside? Could there be very unsavory websites that could be seen as profiting from my advertising appearing on there? And this is really sort of increasing as an issue, and something the programmatic industry is trying to deal with, as our media as well. So traditional media is almost fighting back a little bit and saying, hey, here's a reason why you should try and buy ads in a programmatic way, but from our network of websites, because we're going to offer you more reassurance. And then there's a big opportunity around creative production to show lots of different ad versions and creatives in a programmatic campaign. But you can imagine that's quite a big job to just plan and organize that amount of creative. And then lastly, this is an interesting point, because, some people say that programmatic is not a replacement for effective search pay-per-click on mainly AdWords. Now, I inserted the word effective in here on purpose, because actually, yeah, that's true, but only if your AdWords is running really well. Okay, and unfortunately, we're asked to look at and audit and review a lot of clients' AdWords campaigns, and they're not structured that well, and they're not measuring the right types of conversion points and integrating that with their Google AdWords activity. So in those cases, if it's not a great AdWords campaign, then maybe programmatic could well be an effective replacement. So those are just, to be fair, those are some of the more negative aspects of programmatic. But on the plus side, there's also very important benefits and opportunities. And this key issue that performance will improve over time. It does mean you have to be patient, but you will see good results and they will get better. Secondly, this fact that you can also KPI results against different metrics. You can choose what matters to you as a business, and that's something we often work with clients on trying to identify really what are the key metrics. Is it CPA? And ideally CPA should be based on your margin, your profit margin, and what you can afford to spend per conversion. And you should also factor in the lifetime value of a client as well when setting a realistic CPA. Other factors, you can follow the users across devices. We've talked about that's really important. You can overlay your programmatic using third-party data, and I'll come back to that in a slide in a moment to give you some examples to really help your targeting, though. There are tools alongside programmatic networks which really help you manage really complex sets of creatives, and that helps you give a really good result and makes that side of things easier. And this last point, though, and again, I'm going to come back to this in a bit more detail in a moment, but just by the very fact that you are running a programmatic campaign, you can start to build up a really valuable, rich set of data around your users. Because if you work with a good programmatic partner who'll share this data back with you, maybe through like a dashboard, you can actually build up the data, the picture of what sites your audience are visiting after they leave your site, the people who convert and where they can be found, which is really hard to track through other methods. So that's kind of summarizes programmatic here and now. We've talked about how it works and kind of what a typical campaign looks like and some of the pros and cons of programmatic. And I just wanted to use the last part of the webinar to talk about some possible future uses. Now, I say future, some of these are near future, some of them really you could sort of do next week, and some of them may be longer term. But I think one of the most important and one exciting for us is around geographic targeting of programmatic. So I don't know if it's a thing, but geo-programmatic, you could call that. And as an example of that, this idea of hyper-targeting, hyper-local targeting of your programmatic ad campaign around key locations. Now, let me just explain that. What that could be is, let's say you've got 200 stores or branches or resellers across the UK as part of your distribution network. So as I say, they could be company-owned stores, retail outlets, or they could be stockists or resellers. And you want to help use programmatic to drive footfall to those outlets, then what you could do is use a programmatic campaign to identify visitors to your website who are the most engaged based on some kind of micro conversion or soft goal that might not be buying online, but it could be inquiring or taking some kind of online test or wizard. And then what you could do is say, I want to run a programmatic campaign to all those people and find more people who share the same interests and attributes, but I only want to show them the ads if they're in a proximity right here and now around these key locations. And your ad could be saying, hey, pop into your local branch of wherever to actually come and see in the flesh this product you've been looking at online. Or it could be tied up with some kind of in-store offer or promotion. So you can see this could really drive footfall. It could really help link up digital and offline. It could really support a distribution network if you've got one, which could be very valuable in sort of retaining good commercial relationships with your resellers. And another way to really geographic target using some similar principles could be around key market segments, but at key times. So it could be when people happen to be in central London or in a major city in the centre of the city, and you'd be wanting to sort of promote your products or service or outlet as people are sort of in certain areas, which you might imply they're doing certain things like shopping in the high street. And then lastly, another geographic kind of hookup or link up with programmatic could be to use sort of good old geodemographic data such as Acorn and Mosaic to help target around postcode areas. So that categorizes every household into a type around sort of 7 different individual properties in each postcode, 7 or so, roughly speaking, on the assumption people in those 7 properties are probably going to be pretty similar. And this sort of overlaps a bit here with third-party data sources. I mentioned this earlier, but you could overlay your programmatic campaign and target the activities and ramp up activity or decrease it based on weather data fed in from third-party sources. It could be around users' behavior on social media. Have they shared something on social that makes them more likely to be shown your adverts? It could be tied in with TV schedules. You want to show them your ads during certain campaigns that are running on TV. It could be your campaign, it could be a competitor's campaign, or it could be a key program in the TV schedule. You could overlay financial, lifestyle, even vehicle data from the DVLA as to what car someone drives individually. And obviously it's anonymized, so you're not seeing that individual's data, but the programmatic platform is using that data to target those types of drivers. And we're a Sitecore, a partner agency. So if your web platform is Sitecore, Sitecore does this amazing job at categorizing your visitors, your unknown visitors, into different types of personas based on their behavior, both explicit and implicit. And it's already putting people into these pots of data based on cookies. And why not pass some of those pots of data out into programmatic campaigns and show different personas, different programmatic campaigns with different messages? We talked about the insights that you get just by running a programmatic campaign, to be honest, just by having the pixel on your site in advance of running a campaign. And this is really helpful in helping to identify the sort of the media and device habits of your audience and just add so much data on top of what you think you already know to then help you focus on users who convert. You can then overlay that onto other data sources. But you could plan profiles and audiences on channels like Facebook ads. You know, your prospecting Facebook ad audiences could be much more accurate based on this richer data as to what types of users you think you should be targeting. And then it can also help you plan, as I say, social PPC like Facebook ads, but you can overlay demographic profiles on paid search with AdWords and on things like native advertising campaigns where you need to educate or inspire your audience. So moving out of the home now and into the offline world, which you may think is unusual with programmatic, but there's ways to buy offline advertising inventory now, digital inventory, in a programmatic way. So obviously this isn't going to follow the individual around. So, you know, someone going up an escalator on the underground next to digital billboards aren't going to see an ad because it's that individual person, but you could definitely target them based on time of day and sort of peak flow of traffic and time of the week. And this could be rolled out to, you see digital billboards in shopping centres now, and also on the top of taxis with taxi fins. With taxis is an interesting angle in terms of, is that taxi, does it happen to be outside a specific hotel or chain of hotels and someone wants to advertise on the basis of the location of that taxi, or is it driving down Oxford Street? So there's a lot that could be done to, again, to support in-store sort of proximity campaigns with DOOH, Digital Out of Home. And then another acronym is DAX, Digital Audio Exchange. And, you know, we work with partners like Global Media, who spoke at one of our recent thought leadership events around this. And again, the way that you're buying the ad space on these digital networks can be done programmatically, and inserting your ads into podcasts and streaming or people listening to radio online. It's such a huge audience, and people who do this are so engaged. You know, the stats from Global say that, you know, average 11 hours a week if you're using this type of listening. And there's some programmatic opportunities there. And more so in the future, if you could then link up, okay, I'm going to show these ads to these individuals on Spotify because they've previously been to my website. And then the same might be said of Sky AdSmart. And, you know, I think some people have sort of discussed around if the household is using Sky Broadband already, is Sky collecting the data on what websites are being visited and using that to target the Sky AdSmart ads which are being shown in ad breaks. But, you know, that's certainly a longer term opportunity because with Sky AdSmart, as you may know, the ads shown are personalised based on each box, based on the location or the composition of that household. So that summarises some of the future sort of aspects of programmatic. So I just really wanted to summarise what I feel the opportunity is for you as brands caring about the digital channel and trying to sort of get more conversions, really. So why should you really sort of think about programmatic? What's your opportunity? Well, I think if you're already investing any sort of significant sum in any digital or offline media, any sort of particularly offline advertising, then you really should reconsider that activity and consider diverting some of that investment into programmatic, because we've seen that with many clients. They shift it from that offline or more sort of static based sort of online media into programmatic and start seeing, much better return on investment. If you're looking to scale and reach new users, that prospecting aspect of programmatic is brilliant for doing this, to help reach out and scale up. If you want to play catch up, let's be honest, programmatic's been out a little while now. Some brands are using it. There's sometimes a little bit of a fear factor, and our competitors are using it, or other companies in our group are using it, or other departments, and we need to be doing this. Then now is the time to really start looking at it in earnest. And also, if you're a tool focused on conversions, and who isn't really? Everyone in digital marketing is focused on conversions, and programmatic is all about improving conversions. So it's very important if that's what your big challenge is. And also, if you do have some sort of reasonable budget and data volumes as well. You do need to invest a little bit. You need to allow some time. You need a reasonable sort of quantities of data to really make programmatic work properly for you. So how we can help with getting into programmatic or improving your programmatic? Well, we work with a range of networks, so we're quite impartial in some respects. So we can find the right network to get you onto. But I think the key thing really from these few points on this slide is just we can help you really offer the wider support and strategy, and the advice is programmatic even right for you? And if it is, what other channels do you need in place? Where does it fit into the overall picture for you? Because as with any digital activity, if you silo it, if you just do it in isolation on a standalone basis, you won't get as good results. We can then help you interpret all that lovely data you collect and really, generate some insights from that. And as I just mentioned, make sure that programmatic is doing a job throughout the funnel, the conversion funnel, at top of funnel, mid funnel, and lower funnel, closer towards conversion. And on that point, a really key aspect, we can help you integrate programmatic with the user journey online, this conversion rate optimization aspect, particularly with our platform experience as an agency. So that's how we feel we could help. But, in terms of the next step, we thought we would offer you something as a bit of a thank you for listening to the webinar today. So we put together something that we feel might help you. We called it kind of our free channel review. And because programmatic is just one part of an overall approach to your digital marketing and where it fits in with all your channels, what we're offering is we will take a look at that for you with absolutely no commitment, free of charge, and we'll spend a bit of time doing the following, really. We'll review your overall use of digital channels, because it's hard to know, are you using all the right channels in the right place? Should you spend more on this channel or less on this channel? And by the way, this isn't about trying to get you to spend more, it's about trying to help you spend the money in the right place. So we'll do some initial fact finding with you, ask some questions, look at some data. We'll work out what we think is working and what's not. And we'll try and spot the gaps, the channels you maybe should add into the mix. And the ones you should increase, and actually we'll highlight the ones we think you might want to reconsider. Part of this is also looking at what conversion points. We'll take a look at that for you as well and make sure you've got robust sort of conversion tracking in place as well. And then we'll do a bit of work on that, and then we'll book a half hour or so screen share with myself or one of the team, and we will run through what we found and just talk you through it at top level, and hopefully give you some more ideas of some areas to go away and have a think and sort of improve your overall digital marketing, but with a specific also regard as to where programmatic could fit into that mix. So, as I say, that's completely free. We'd be delighted to talk to you further about that. In terms of the next steps, if you want to take up that offer, as Sarah said in the introduction, you'll get a follow-up email to this webinar sharing the deck. so you can sort of go through the slides at your leisure. Just simply reply to that email saying, yeah, please, we'd like to take up the offer of the review. But if you can't wait till then, you drop us an email, give us a call. If you're an existing client, speak to the team already. If you've got an account manager here, both in my team on digital marketing side or throughout the rest of the business. Or actually, if you want to sort of just meet up and have a chat, that's absolutely fine. Really happy just to sit and chat through and look at some data with you and try and make it interesting and just chat through some of your challenges. So you're always welcome down at our offices in Ashford in Kent or our recently moved to office in Shoreditch. So that concludes the webinar today. Before I sort of just sign off, we're just going to check, because as Sarah said at the intro, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the little chat box. If you want to put one in there now, please do so, and we'll have a quick look now and see if we've got any questions to answer.
Yes, we do. We've got a question from Babita, and her question is, what kind of time frame would you need to consider before seeing improvements in performance from programmatic?
That's a really good question. Thank you for asking that. That's so timeframes on programmatic. So as I said, the first step is to drop the tracking pixel on your website first, and it depends how many sessions you're getting to your site. But really, you want that in place 2 or 3 weeks before you run any type of programmatic advertising. If you do a bit longer, great. Bare minimum 2 weeks. And what that pixel will do is start to build up the picture of the audience. Then you would turn on your programmatic campaign, and really the minimum time period for a decent programmatic campaign is probably about 6 weeks on average. You can sort of just squeeze by 4 weeks, but about 6 weeks or more. And within that 6 weeks, in my experience, you'll see some good results in week 1, and literally probably a couple of times a week the results will improve. So if your metric is CPA, you will see that cost per acquisition steadily dropping down quite significantly. So one we did recently, about a month ago, was a consumer-facing campaign, and the CPA, I think it doubled from week 1 to week 2. Sorry, not doubled, it halved from week 1 to week 2. So that just gives you just an idea of how quickly, depending on the volumes of data and performance of that campaign, that the programmatic system can start optimizing and start improving the results. It can sometimes be a little bit like you have to take the average of the whole 6 weeks. So don't panic if in the first couple of weeks you think the results are really not looking what you expected, because in the latter few weeks, they obviously can be much, much better than you expected. So you need to sort of step back and take an average for the whole campaign. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, and we have a second question. What's the minimum investment you need to make programmatic work?
Well, as I say, we work with a number of different partners. In terms of financial investment in media spend, I would say you need to be thinking around £5,000 as an initial investment for a first campaign. Sometimes you can kind of squeeze that down a little bit, but that would be a decent sort of minimum spend. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility, especially if someone, as I said earlier, is investing already in offline, or if you've got a fairly significant PPC spend possibly, and maybe your PPC marketplace is getting more and more competitive. But that's kind of like a minimum spend. You may also then, you might want just a little bit of consultancy around that. There might be a bit of investment in creative assets, because that is a really key aspect. Having really good creative. You don't want to spend this sort of money and do this incredibly clever form of advertising and then put a really out of date, not very inspiring creative out through it. So, maybe a little bit more budget than that for some, management consultancy, some planning and some creative as well.
I think that's it.
That's great. Okay. Well, thanks for those questions. I hope you found that useful. As I say, don't forget about the offer of the free channel review. Really happy just to do that. No commitment sort of review and feedback back with you and have a chat. If you've got any other questions about any other of our services, please do get in touch, and also look out, because you're on our radar now if you weren't already. And we do so many of these webinars. We've got great videos on YouTube. We do thought leadership events, sort of offline physical events. You know, Sarah does a brilliant job at keeping everyone informed of those things, and also follow our social media. And you'll always be very, very welcome at any other events that we run in the future. And we hope to see you there. So again, thank you for listening, and I hope you found that useful. Bye-bye.